Good morning, everyone. This is the morning meeting. Dan, Sean, and I are going to take you around the world to hot spots, low spots, highlights, and the best and worst of all of us. Thank you for being part of the two-way experience. We say conversations like no other, and we mean it. Not only do we have the two-way participation, and I know, by the way, if you want to get in on the conversation, please do what many have already done and raise your hand, electronic hand, if you're in the two-way platform. But we try to have dialogue here where all voices are welcome, no matter what the topic, no matter what the tensions, nuance, subtlety. Sean and Dan come from different ideological points of view, and yet they know each other so well, they're considering making each other the godparents of their kids, even though they've already got godparents. That's how well they get along. So, as you participate today, as you write in the chat, no smack though, remember, this is not a normal platform compared to most places who make their money off of extremism and off of not being open to hearing opposing point of views, but make their money off of simply driving a single point of view, like Diet Coke right into your veins. That's not what we do here. So please, if you're here, enjoy what we do. You must enjoy it somewhat, or you wouldn't be here. Dan's in Washington, D.C. Dan, tell us about the funny experience you had last night during the Two Way Tonight program.
I did. I was walking back to my hotel and
Minding your own business.
minding my own business when someone yells, "Dan!" And I turn around and there's Matthew Bartlett watching Two Way Tonight and taking a selfie at the same time. We had a nice chat on the sidewalk and ran into a lot of people yesterday.
That's very meta.
Being here. Yep.
Dan, anybody in Washington, D.C. where you're visiting, they know about Two Way? They know about the morning meeting at all? Any awareness?
They sure do. I have been very surprised at the number of people in the hotel where I'm staying, which is one of the larger ones in town. How many people watch Two Way and watch the morning meeting? I've been stopped a few times.
Yeah, it's nice. Sean, what would you like to tell us about your Monday? I don't want to pry, but
No, I posted all on Instagram. It was a meeting of the Board of Visitors of the Naval Academy. So I will say to Dan's point, I kept the volume down, but I was watching and reading the chat throughout, while of course paying full attention to the agenda. But we had a very productive meeting and spent some quality time over at the White House. We'll be back today.
All right. Our thoughts again, or thanks again, rather, to Larry O'Connor, who filled in for Sean again. And we love having Larry here and appreciate his making time for us in his busy day. In a moment, I will run through the Daybook. Then we'll kick around about a dozen stories. So you're going to see us go lickety split through a lot of stuff. And as always, I retain the power of the mute button. And then we'll get to your questions. So please, if you're here on the two-way platform and you'd like to be in the conversation, raise your hand. Oh, by the way, two housekeeping notes. First, you may not know this program is available as a podcast. Please go now to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and download, subscribe. What do they do with it, Dan? Listen, stream. Yep. Anyway, so you can watch us live on Two-Way, live on X, live on YouTube. But if you want to listen to us as a podcast, say if you're taking a walk or folding the laundry or putting on your new pair of Cozy Earth pants, please listen to us as a podcast. Speaking of Cozy Earth, they are our sponsor here, one of our sponsors here. We're very glad to have them. And we're delighted to tell you what I tell you every day. Two kinds of people, those of you who've listened to me and those who don't. I hear every day from folks who say, Mark, I don't usually order pants online, but I did because you were so high on the Cozy Earth pants, sheets, shirts, etc. And everybody's happy. Now, maybe some of you ordered them and you hate them and you're too annoyed with me to reach out. But if I'm just going with the sample space of who reached out, you all love your Cozy Earth pants. And those of you who haven't followed suit, I recommend it. They're clothes made viscous from bamboo, keep you nice and cool when it's hot outside, and they look great. We talked about that yesterday. Heard from one of you about how much their spouse thinks the pants look great, and I'm not wearing them every day because that would be silly, but I wear them nearly every day. Go to cozyearth.com right now. Use the code two-way. Dan, how much do you get off for using the code
Look
two-way?
at that. Those are the joggers.
40%. Sean, I thought you were stretching out there for a minute.
No, look at that. This is legit. When I say I order,
this is his word.
Cozyearth.com. Use the code two-way for 40% off best-selling sheets, pajamas, and of course the pants, built for real life, made to keep up with yours, Cozy Earth. All right, gentlemen, we have a lot to get to, so we're just going to speed through here. We could start any number of places, but we're going to start with Epstein. And I'm going to ask you for serious answers, not jokey answers, not politically shaved answers. What if you gave people the only choice you have is yes or no? No, maybe, no, I don't know. You have to pick yes or no. Dan, what percentage of Washington journalists, including ones who work for Fox News, and other conservative places, what percent of journalists think Donald Trump signed, that's his signature, and he whether he physically wrote the drawing or not, that is his handiwork, that he authorized that's his? What percent of reporters think that?
100%.
100%. Okay, Sean?
I'm low to mid 90s.
Low to mid 90s. Okay. What percent of Republican members of Congress privately think it's Donald Trump's handiwork? Dan?
100%.
100%.
Privately.
Sean?
You said
Yeah,
privately.
no, I said privately. Sean?
I'd say low 80s.
Low 80s. Okay. What percent of current White House communications officials think it's Donald Trump's handiwork? Dan?
95%.
95. Sean?
I'll go closer to between 50 and 60.
I agree with Sean. Nonetheless, these percentages are very high. The president, his press secretary, et cetera, vociferously deny it. Here's my question, Sean. They're in litigation with Rupert Murdoch. There'll be discovery. How is he just going to drop the case? Like, he can't, assuming everybody's right. And just to be clear, my position, even though I said force yes, no, I tend to believe people. I believe Michael Jackson never had plastic surgery because he said he didn't. So I'm agnostic. But Sean, assuming that he did do it, which you all think most everybody who's paying attention does, how is he going to get out of this?
Because that's well, you didn't ask me what I believe, and
I didn't. I purposely didn't ask you. What
right?
You
No. But I would just say that like Trump has played this game for a long time, so I actually think in this case he knows what he's doing. Like Michael Cohen of all people came out and said, I don't think this is Donald Trump, who obviously. So when you see,
what did he base that on?
He said and all of the things that I've seen him write or say, this isn't his style. This isn't anything I ever saw of him.
Interesting.
And so for somebody like Michael Cohen to say that, who has nothing but bad things to say about Donald Trump, who spent a lot of time around him, probably saw him write cards and notes to people. That's where I go, okay, if somebody that close to him, who spent that much time and who clearly doesn't have nice things to say about the president at this point, sides with Trump, it makes me actually believe that this could have been an aide. This could have been somebody. I actually think that Trump knows what he's doing in this case. He wouldn't have gone to, because he knows he's going to go to discovery.
Yeah.
So I think that when you know that's going to happen, you know, to your point, you wouldn't have pushed the envelope if you knew that it exists or you knew that he actually did it.
Yeah. Dan, what happens next? And not just in this, but in the whole Epstein thing, what happens next?
I think there's two things to watch for, which is, does Maxwell get pardoned, and do any of the the victims start to name names either directly or through other people? Again, we talked about this last week, through members of Congress who have the free speech clause. Then you're adding some new oxygen, and the question is, who do these people know? Are they friends with the president? Are they friends with the Clintons?
Right. One more question for you, Dan, and then we're going to move on. Maureen yesterday came on, member of our community, former FBI agent, and said she thought the reason, it was pretty clear that the reason that Maxwell was moved because she's cooperating with the investigation. I was amazed. Were you surprised, as I was, that didn't get any pickup? I thought that people would be talking about that all day. I didn't hear anybody talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, what would she be cooperating with? 6 years later now. It's an interesting question. I was also surprised to hear, last night on Two Way Tonight, Nina Turner say, I don't want to talk about this, and let's move on.
Yeah. So Nina said she didn't want to talk about it, but what we did talk about last night on Two Way Tonight quite extensively was this horrible situation in North Carolina. It's become highly political, not a surprise. And although some people say, including Nina and Emma Jo last night, said, we don't want to talk about race. Race has nothing to do with it. I just say with respect, and as I thought about it overnight, and I thought about some other prominent cases I've covered, race is playing a role in this. It just is. So we could talk about this the whole show, and I'm eager to hear what you guys think. But Dan, you first. Where is that story going? In other words, there's lots of debate about all the various aspects of it. But is this story sustaining, or by the end of the week will this story have moved out of the news cycle?
I think it sustains in the sense that Trump is going to sustain the crime push, which ties to the immigration push, which is a question of who's going to keep you safe. And that is something where Democrats have been on a back foot, whether it's immigration or now on crime. The party kind of writ large is unsure how to respond. I heard it throughout yesterday, meeting with chief of staffs and other things. trying to advise their bosses, stay silent. No, you should get involved. And I think go back to 2020. One of the big things that Democrats would say, well, the reason they didn't take more House seats was the George Floyd social unrest and the images of Portland and these cities that were burning. Latinos and others, swing voters, it made them incredibly uncomfortable. They wanted law and order. They wanted somebody strong. And that's never been the party's strength the last 10, 15 years. So I think for Donald Trump, and I don't blame them if the shoe on the other foot, they're going to keep pressing this. So whether Charlotte, this specific murder remains, I think it will remain in the news because there's video. Yeah, and it's chilling, and it's a young girl, and every parent thinks my kid could, that could be my kid looking at their phone, head down, kind of minding their own business. We all see crazy people on the street in almost every city. That could be my child.
And of course, there's a Senate race there, and the president's already put it in that context. Sean, here is Rokana on X writing about what happened. 104, please. He says, even the mother of the murderer said he should not have been left in the community after his January arrest. We need to have common sense policies. People with serious mental health issues and multiple arrests who pose a threat should not be roaming the streets. Is that, Sean, you think the position Democrats should take? Does that go far enough?
So it's a multitude of issues here, because it's not just that this person had mental health issues. They were 14 different times released. I think that that's to me a cop-out, because it's not like there was an issue with mental health and it just got overlooked or unseen. This person had a criminal record over and over again and was let out over and over and over again. And to see the Democratic governor of North Carolina try to use this as an opportunity to push his budget is actually despicable and pathetic. There's a media piece of this as well. The lack of coverage of this stuff that MAGA and conservatives are rightly outraged about how it's being covered is unbelievable. And again, I was reading Playbook this morning, and them attempting to juxtapose this as a political issue is a cop-out because they're not acknowledging their own role. The media has largely acknowledged, has largely failed to cover this as a story. They failed to cover crime. They failed to cover Democrats covering up stuff. They have failed to cover up the fact that, well, everybody loves to talk about misinformation and the Bureau of Labor Statistics stats. When Democrats and their allies take crime statistics and do the same, they minimize them, and then they don't report on that, they're complicit in this. So the media and the left have created this problem for themselves, and I think Republicans hopefully will drive it home.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, crime has been a huge issue in mayoral races in San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. Like, this has been an issue for the last few years. What I think has not been reported enough is, and I've said this now a few times, the Democratic attempts at police reform and crime reform coming out of George Floyd largely failed. Not enforcing small district attorneys who don't press small crime, bail reform, well-intentioned, but it's clear it didn't work. And the party now has been slowly walking away from this, whether it's bringing back stop and frisk in a lot of these cities, which they've quietly done, even here in DC and New York City. Again, Democrat, Mayor Adams is black. The mayor of DC is black. They've slowly brought this back quietly. The party hasn't wanted to reconcile with all of this stuff publicly. And that, I think, is where there has not been as much conversation. But I wouldn't say Democrats and the media have ignored crime in major cities.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, the Democratic Party advocated defunding the police, decriminalizing several serious crimes, making felonies misdemeanors, and largely ignoring this, and then allowing the sort of growth of Soros-funded soft on crime prosecutors, and now suddenly go, yeah, crime's an issue. They've done everything for the last 7 to 8 years to actually minimize crime, to create a safe space for illegals.
Longer than that.
No, but I mean, especially in the era of Trump, and to now turn around and act like, oh, woe is me, how did we get here? This is a problem that Democrats created. It was their policies, their soft on crime policies, their defund the police attitude, and to turn around now and act like they care is ridiculous. And the media has been 100% complicit in this.
Sean, I agree with everything you just said, almost 100%, pretty close to 100. Here's the one thing I would say. the press not covering this particular story should not be fetishized. It should not be the focus. This particular murder, as tragic as it is, there's a hundred crimes. There's tons of crime. I don't want to give it a number, but this happens all the time, including black on black crime. Okay,
correct.
So I'm just saying I don't think the coverage of this case, for reasons both understandable and fine, like there's video and the racial component. I get why it's being covered. In fact, being covered more than most. So I just don't want to turn this into.
No, but who's
the press
the
should be covering this?
The
press should be
the
covering
only
this
reason it's
anyway.
being covered is because of people on the right calling attention to it. I get it. There's a lot of people that die every day.
Right, but I don't think more coverage of this case is the answer. More coverage of every case is the answer. This one shouldn't be covered so disproportionately because it's unfair to the other victims of crime.
Sure, but when you look at who does get covered, this is the problem. Is it like so many other things? This is the perfect example for folks on the right to hold up and see. This is another example because you're right. The only ones that do get covered are ones that fit into the media and left-wing narrative, which is if it fits, if it's bad, then we cover it. But this is the same issue that happened with the transgender story in Minnesota a couple weeks ago. If it doesn't fit our narrative of guns are bad and white people are bad, then we won't cover it. And we saw the same thing. When the death doesn't fit the narrative, we don't cover it.
I totally agree with you. I just don't want the solution to be seen as obsessively covering this to the exclusion of the larger issues and other people. All right, let's try to do a few issues really fast. So just like one sentence replies from both of you. It looks like once again, the Israeli government plans to go into Gaza. Sean, is this time for real, or are they going in and occupying Gaza City today? In this moment, or are they going to delay it again?
I think based on the the warning out from Prime Minister Netanyahu sounds to me as the most declarative thing he's ever said. I would heed that warning if I were in the area. I don't know where you go, but my point is, I think this is real. And if it's not, then he blew a major card.
Dan, is this one real?
I agree with Sean. It appears so.
Okay. I read something in one of the tip sheets this morning that given where the congressional recess is and the deadline on needing a CR or some other vehicle to delay a government shutdown, people actually proposed maybe Congress should do it before they left on vacation, forgetting Halperin's third rule of Washington, which is Congress never acts before it absolutely has to, and sometimes not even then. So obviously they're going to have to deal with it pretty quickly when they get back, and that could lead to, as I think Sean said the other day, maybe Dan, a very short shutdown while the Senate passes the House bill. Just tell me now, the CR will go through the fall, into the winter, into the spring, or a year? What will the length of the CR that eventually passes be? Dan?
It's going to go to the spring, and there will be a 3 to 5 day shutdown, and that was made pretty clear to me yesterday.
Sean?
I think there's a short-term bill that gets you to the second longer bill.
Right, but they're
going to take it to the spring.
Not the patch, but what is the bill that's that's
ultimately,
not just. Is it the spring?
I think it goes through the end of the year. So they're going to get
end of this year.
End of FY 26. So they'll get a patch to November, and then they'll take November to September.
September.
I think they'll get a handful of bills through, 3 or 4, package the rest in what they call a minibus, and jam it through for the year.
Okay, so you guys disagree on that. Interesting. All right.
Also, can I just say this?
And by the way, Mark, the big thing for Dems is going to be that Obamacare extension. That is, and Republicans are split on it.
Yeah, it'll be in there. It has to be.
Here's the real answer, though. Whatever the White House tells them, the one thing I've seen,
they want March. They want March.
They want March. That's why it's going to be March.
Because what I have seen over the last, last 4 business days, Congress right now is just unbelievably complicit. If the president says tomorrow, I want you to adjourn for 3 days and then come back on a 4th, they're like, okay.
Wait a second. The last
Hold on. We got to move on. Guys, we got to move on. Got to move on.
Good point.
Sean, I want you to do stream of consciousness, what Trump would say. You can do your best imitation. When Trump reads that once again, mild-mannered Scott Bessent has physically confronted another member of Trump's team, what does Trump think when he hears that story?
I had no idea Scott was such a fighter. He's a tough guy. He's a tough cookie. I didn't know he had it in him. But wow, that's Scott Bessent. You don't want to go up against him.
Dan, that's 100% right, just so you know.
Yeah, okay. Would the word killer be in there? He's a killer?
He's a killer. He might be. He might say killer. That's good.
But I never knew he was such a killer. I didn't know it.
Yeah. All right. Who's winning? Rand versus JD. Who's winning? Rand versus JD? Dan.
Oh, JD Vance.
Sean.
JD Vance.
Okay. All right.
Mark, who's winning?
Yeah. Oh, JD Vance. I love Rand Paul's iconoclastic nature, but he's out of his league here. All right. Two 2028 potential hopefuls making statements in the last 24 hours regarding their potential futures. Here is Dan's favorite candidate, Governor Beshear of Kentucky, on the cable news network.
I am. You can't be governor that much longer. So the question arises, what are you going to do next? You just signed on. You have a Sirius XM show. We were just talking about that during the commercial break. Let me put the question this way. What would you be doing differently right now if you definitely were not about to run for
John
president?
Berman, a viewer of my program.
I diagnose that question. What I'd say is right now I'm trying to speak reason into chaos. I'm trying to be a voice of common sense, common ground, and getting things done. That's where I want the Democratic Party to be. But that's where I want the Republican Party to be. That's where I want independents to be. When we're done with this current presidency, we need to do more than just move past Donald Trump. We need to heal this country. We can't continue this us versus them for any longer. We need our McCarthyism moment where we can come back together. So, this year, trying to do what I can to be a reasonable voice. Next year, head of the Democratic Governors Association. We're going to win in a lot of places and change the map. After that, I'm going to sit down, and if my family thinks that I'm somebody that can help heal this country, I'll consider it. But if there's somebody else, I'll be for them, because at the end of the day, I care more about the United States than any title that I could have.
Governor Andy Beshear, we will be standing by.
Put a pin in his talking about McCarthyism, and put a pin in his whether you think that's a good 2028 message. Stand by. Here's Wes Moore announced his reelection for governor of Maryland today. Interview with the Washington Post suggested yet again, you see there the headline, Governor Wes Moore tamps down presidential talk as he launched his reelection bid. Here's part of his reelection announcement video for governor of Maryland.
And the games of Washington are exhausting. And worse, they're hurting people. So listen, I'm not from that world. And y'all know I'm a person of action. And we are moving forward fast across the state and across party lines to prove to a dysfunctional Washington that there is a better way forward, to make our public schools the best in America, to end childhood poverty once and for all, and to make sure that more Marylanders can afford to live here, to buy a home here and create wealth for their families and live that secure middle-class life. And that's why I'm asking you to re-elect me as governor. But first, we need your help. So chip in, follow us, share this video, but most importantly, join us. And let's keep building a state where we leave no one behind. Are we good?
Good.
Let's get back to work.
All right. So everyone who's thinking of running for the Democratic nomination is trying to figure out the balance between being just anti-Trump, base, and a promise to bring the country together. And you can do that. Bill Clinton did it. George Bush did it. Barack Obama did it. It is possible Donald Trump did it. So two questions for you guys. Sean, forget the candidates, just their messages. Which of those two messages do you think is better, the Beshear one or the Moore one?
Did Beshear have a message?
Okay,
no,
so
he did to start. His first,
I dozed off when he was talking.
Do either of you know what he meant by the McCarthyite thing or McCarthyite moment? What did he mean by that?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. So Wes Moore just wins because he actually had words.
Dan, do you agree? Wes Moore's message was better in the clips?
No, I actually don't. I actually think the opening of Beshear saying common sense and get stuff done, I actually think that is because Wes Moore was just a word salad of like making, getting rid of childhood poverty. I mean, it's like George Bush getting rid of evil. Like, okay.
All right. Take this question seriously, guys. I give you that admonition. Raise your hand if you want to get in the conversation. We got a few more topics. Let's say you're a political consultant and you want to work for a winning presidential campaign. You want to work for the nominee who has a good chance of winning the general. And both those guys approach you and ask you to be like their GC, their general consultant for the campaign. Okay. Taking all things into account, who can raise the money, who's really going to run, who's got a good chance. If you could be the chief strategist for Beshear or Moore, who would you accept the offer from? Sean.
JD Vance. Bashir, there's no question about it. I think Wes Moore has got him every day of the week.
Okay, Dan.
Bashir, if I wanted to be president, Wes Moore to be vice president.
Wubba dubba da, what?
I think Wes Moore is. I will say more about this later here, but I think Wes Moore is really angling to be vice president. I don't get the sense that I don't think the party's going to nominate a black man. I'll just be really honest. Okay. I don't. So I think Bashir has a better chance to be the nominee, but Wes Moore has a great chance to be the VP nominee.
Got it. All right. New York City mayor's race. Competing stories in the Wall Street Journal and New York Times regarding Dan's friends, all the plutocrats who don't want a socialist mayor. The New York Times reports that they're meeting today. This is 107, that there's a meeting already probably underway, if the story's right, 8:30 breakfast this morning, I think. Wealthy New York developers call meeting to plot Mondami's defeat. Some of New York's largest landlords will convene on Tuesday morning for an urgent gathering to support Cuomo, saying, quote, the time to act is now. That's quoting from an email sent by one of Dan's plutocrat friends. Back from the Hamptons, it took them 8 days to gear up, but now allegedly meeting to talk about how to form some sort of entity to stop Mondami. But the Wall Street Journal takes a different approach in their reporting 108. New York City developers resigned to Mondami winning now want to work with him. Here's a poll from Siena. Here's the four-way of the candidates still in the race. Mondami, 46. Dan, didn't you tell us his ceiling was 40?
This is the first time I've seen him go up. Yep.
Mondami, 46. Yep. Cuomo, 24. Sliwa, 15. Mayor Adams, 9. So that's the three-way. And of course, or four-way, if that's anything close to right, of course, this race is over. And here is the two-way. If somehow Sliwa and Adams got out of the race, Mondami's still ahead, but within the margin of error, 48-44 over Cuomo. So,
and that's likely voters.
That's likely voters. This poll shows more strength for Mondami than we've seen, as Dan said. But it's one poll, and I know of other private polls that aren't quite like that. But the trend is certainly correct. So, Dan, does this mean that Mondami back up to 80%, 90% chance of winning, or is there another factor you'd like to highlight? By the way, I know Dan has another factor he'd like to highlight.
I don't know what you're referring to there.
That any poll assumes who's in the electorate.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, that's right. So the New York Times poll then says that if you ask registered voters, meaning it's bigger than who is likely to, historically vote in a mayoral, Cuomo was up by a point or two, which is, hat tip mark to Two-Way Tonight and Wick Strategies, because this is what you guys talked about a month ago when you broke down the electorate and said, not only does the race have to narrow, but you need the electorate to expand beyond its traditional stuff. I will say, and I know there's no way to help this, all these New Yorkers leaking that they're meeting to try to stop Mondani, like, you got to keep your mouth shut, because I think one of the reasons Mondani might be legitimately rising above 40% is this idea of everyone is conspiring, publicly, Trump, billionaires, everyone to stop. Guys, shut your mouth.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Although this leaked out. Sean, do you want to weigh in on our mayor's race?
It's over.
It's over. Okay.
Get used to mayor and done.
Once again, I did it either yesterday or last week. But once again, I forgot to do the Daybook, so I'll quickly do that. The new pool, the pool today at the White House, Bloomberg, is the secondary print pool. Gray TV, secondary TV. Decrypt Media is the new media seat, and the Associated Press is the radio pool. Limited schedule. The president participates in a swearing-in ceremony at 4. It's currently closed press, but then he signs a proclamation at 4:30, opens the pool. So stay tuned to Two-Way tonight. We'll have a lot to discuss because the president's going to talk up a storm. And then, of course, we'll have the 1 o'clock Caroline Levitt briefing, and there'll be a lot of questions there about many of the topics we've discussed here. Full day on the Hill. Both leaderships are having press conferences right after the show ends, House and Senate leadership. Senators are having their weekly separate lunches, and Mike Johnson and other leaders are holding a memorial service at 6 p.m. for members of Congress who passed away last year. Right after we go off the air, BLS releases its revised jobs report for covering the year that ended in March. And Amy Coney Barrett continues her book tour, 9 p.m. Eastern. She's speaking at the Reagan Foundation Center on Civility and Democracy in Simi Valley.
By the way, loyal viewer wanted me to give a shout out. Senator Ron Johnson's having a hearing today too on vaccines. So one of our Two-Way morning meeting viewers has asked that I just make sure I note that. There you go.
Thank you for that. Can we take the BBC? Are we able to do that? I can't remember whether that's in our list. There's breaking news. Israel, according to various sources, CNN and the BBC, both reporting. Mark. Okay. Go to, it's on everything. Go take CNN if you would. Israel has carried out an attack against Hamas leadership in Qatar. So I don't know what kind of attack, if they bombed or bombs, according to the BBC. So go ahead and take CNN if you would. It's a big story.
To end the Israeli war with Hamas. An extraordinary, unprecedented moment with Israel trying to target Hamas officials inside the Gulf nation of Qatar. Stay with us.
Okay, you take it down. We'll keep monitoring. This will be an extraordinary story in Qatar. The leadership there will be unsettled by the Israelis striking there, and of course, it's an American ally. Steve Witkoff speaks very highly of the government there, and we have an American base there. So, Sean, this is we've seen since October 7th. We've seen a series of things that unprecedented. What do you think the implications are going to be of a U.S. strike inside Qatar?
I think this could be a big deal. I mean, the Abraham Accords are held together sort of with duct tape, and this could be. I think we're going to need to know more is probably the first answer, which is was Qatar given a heads up? Did they know? If they weren't, that's a big problem, and I have a feeling they weren't. So I think that this could have some serious diplomatic repercussions unless Qatar says we gave the green light.
Well, I think I'm just going to watch what Qatar says in the next few hours, because if they were given a heads up, they'll have a very vanilla statement. If they were not, it could be an apocalyptic statement of.
Yeah. Here's the Associated Press. An Israeli official has told the AP that it targeted Hamas's leadership in Doha. The official spoke on condition airstrike. Didn't say where. Explosions could be heard in Doha.
So if it's an airstrike, they had to enter their airspace. I mean that. Wow. Yeah. It's hard to think they didn't know about it.
Yeah. And obviously this comes amidst the negotiations in which both sides were on the verge of according to.
Well, and I imagine Carolyn Levitt's going to be asked if we knew.
Yeah, well, for sure. And it's not going to wait to her briefing. This is going to be a big story. All right. We'll continue to monitor it, and we'll probably dip back in to some coverage in a minute. I'm going to skip. Well, I don't want to skip it because it's so historic. Dan's too young to remember Fawn Hall and Oliver North. But
what? I remember Iran-Contra. That was like, I remember my parents talking about it in New York Times.
Exactly. Your parents talking about it. Either of you want to say anything to the happy couple? According to Michael Isikoff, Oliver North and Fawn Hall secretly married 40 years after Iran-Contra. She's divorced, I believe, and he's a widower.
Correct.
Sean, anything you want to say to the couple?
Good luck.
Okay, Dan.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, as long as they're happy, that's all that matters.
All right, I'm going to read a quick message from our other sponsor right now, and then we're going to go to your questions. We'll continue to monitor the Israel story, extraordinary story, and please raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. Our other sponsor today is Lean. This has to do with health and dieting, and make sure that you're not getting to 60 and lost the ability to lose weight or yo-yo up and down. So many people lose a lot of weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. It's called weight cycling. Half of Americans do it. And if you do it a lot, you are at risk of all sorts of things: diabetes, liver damage, heart attack, and stroke. Weight cycling is considered if you gain 10 pounds or more and then lose it, put it back on, lose it, puts tremendous strain on your organs. So bottom line, people need help to stop weight cycling, and Lean is a great way to do it. Created by doctors, Lean is an oral supplement, not a GLP-1 injectable, and the science on Lean suggests it can help you in 3 powerful ways: maintain healthy blood sugar, helps control appetite and cravings, and it helps burn fat by converting it to energy. That's the way to keep weight off. So if you want to take 20% off, give this a try. Go to lean.com, put in the code MARK to get 20% off. Give it a try. All right, let's go to the community here. Again, you can ask about whatever you want. We'll continue to monitor the Israel story, but let's go to Matt. Matt, welcome in. Thanks for joining Two-Way. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
Thanks, Mark. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Good to meet you guys. Are the best. Great to be on. Two things, Dan. Tell me why why Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania is not the most talented Democrat in the party. And for Sean, in red states right now, cities and crime are all the attention. Any opportunity for Republicans or independents to take over some posts at mayor at some of the bigger cities?
I can go first. Shapiro, his MO is that he gets along with Republicans. He's not a flamethrower. And I think the question is, does he have kind of in his stomach the willingness to kind of mix it up with Republicans, with Trump, with Vance, the way that a Gavin Newsom is? If he is just going to, this is why I think one of the concerns about being VP a little bit is like, would he be the happy warrior, going up and being the tip of the spear against Trump and Vance every day, which is what you want your VP to be, an attack dog. So, we got to see, is he willing to get out there and really try to mix it up?
Matt, I'll tell you the other caution I give you, and then Sean will jump in. When he was under scrutiny for being vice president, the vice presidential nominee, he did not respond to about 7 different attacks on him. Yep. And it really gave people pause about why he did not. And you see that in Harrisburg too. He deals with a lot of kind of low level issues that he doesn't respond to. And again, if you're going to run for president effectively, you've got to handle that stuff. So people really, I wouldn't say spooked by it, but it's been a caution. It's taken some of the halo off of him. Sean.
And I'm from Chicago, guys. I wanted to tell you. Sorry.
So actually, this is even better than I had Rod Blagojevich on my show yesterday. We were talking about crime and all these kind of stuff. And I said, look, just out of curiosity, do you ever see a world in which Chicago could vote for a Republican mayor? He said, yeah. I mean, look, I think it would have to be what was the guy who ran for mayor in Chicago? Richard
Daley?
No. No, I'm sorry. In LA.
The billionaire.
Yeah. Or are you talking about the real estate developer who's running for governor now?
Yeah. But anyway, my point is, I think if you had a rich self-funder type, I could potentially see a scenario where things kind of, you got a sort of a Michael Bloomberg-ish type person. I mean, I think New York, the problem that's fundamentally happening in most cities is Republicans or people who probably would vote are moving. So you're seeing this over the last several cycles where you're getting New York, I think, is down to 13% Republican, maybe 17, something like that. So it's precipitously going down in a lot of cities where making it much harder for that number to happen. So I think it's possible in certain cities, but it'll have to be under the right circumstances and with somebody on the right who has a big checkbook. So I wish I could tell you that I think it's going to happen, but most cities, I mean, if you tick through them, Washington, D.C. will never have a Republican. New York, I think Giuliani is probably the last real Republican. Bloomberg just rented it. So I don't see many big cities ever having a Republican, no.
Okay. Matt, how'd you start watching Two-Way?
I started in the spring. I used to watch another show, not going to be named, over more of a populist point of view that I just got tired of, needed a change. And I think you guys got the best show.
We're grateful to you. Thanks for being part of it. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Let's go to Michael Briggs, because he's one of my favorite people on earth, and he almost never raises his hand, even though he's a regular member of our community, former advisor to a presidential candidate from North Carolina and a presidential candidate from Vermont. He can tell you who if you'd like. Michael, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. What's caused you to raise your hand today?
I'm raising my hand because I'm trying to get you guys help figuring out why an issue has been almost ignored by the press and political pundits. As somebody who was involved in some campaigns, I always thought issues were underrated.
Yeah.
One of the people I worked for was Bernie Sanders, and people went and supported him, not because of his good looks, not because of his charisma, but I think because of some of the issues that he talked about. And one that I saw this morning buried on the websites of the Post and Journal and New York Times was the report yesterday on the National Assessment of Educational Progress that showed that our seniors in high school now are scoring worse than they have since 2005 in math and 1992 in reading skills. And I think that's a tremendous scandal. I think it ought to be up there, talked about on the network news and in the print editions of the papers and elsewhere in the country a lot more than it is. And I don't know why it isn't. I think it's a national embarrassment, and we've got to be talking about what to do about it.
Right, Michael. Let me say through two things, then ask you one, and then let Dan and Sean in. First of all, I thought about including that here as a topic to talk about, and
good,
and I should have. I sort of on the fence about it. As you know, education is not really a national issue. Presidents like to pretend it is, Congress likes to pretend it is, but it's really up to state and local to deal with it. They spend most of the money, they set most of the policy, et cetera. So it's a little hard to talk about it because it's 50 problems and in some ways, 3,000 problems as opposed to one national problem. But let me ask you this, what would you like to see Washington do on this matter?
I'd like to see them highlight the matter. I think that's one thing that the education department can do. The president can talk about it.
Well, it's being dismantled.
Well, it is being dismantled, but that part of it is still there.
Yeah.
And the education testing, I predict, would continue even if the department is dismantled. I'd like to see somebody with the guts to take on the teachers union. What we've tried has not worked over the last decades. I don't know what we did right after Sputnik. I'm old enough to remember that, but I don't remember what we did that worked that made our performance in public high schools and public schools generally improve. But I'd like to see some more concentration on that.
Yeah, well, Sean, before you answer, just CNN's reporting that the U.S. was informed ahead of the strike, and the BBC's reporting that the Hamas officials were meeting at the time of the strike, talking about the ceasefire negotiations. Sean.
So I actually think that education and healthcare are two issues that, you're right, don't get the attention. There's a myriad of reasons why, but I agree with you. If this is such a tragedy, what we're seeing right now, as we look to compete in the next generation in the AI race and all this other stuff, what we're focusing on, what we're not focusing on, education, and the idea that we're, as a country, willing to accept this level of mediocrity in our education system is unbelievable. Luckily, I think there's more and more tools available. Homeschooling is becoming much more popular. So that there is somewhat being addressed, but I think, considering where we are as a country and what we've allowed the priorities to be, in terms of what kids are learning and not learning in school, it's pretty pathetic. And then I'll say, I think one of the bigger issues within that sort of realm is higher education. The idea that, the cost of education has gotten so outrageous. And again, the ROI, like we're allowing people to go rack up thousands and thousands of dollars in debt to have a degree that they'll never make enough money to pay off the debt because the major is a ridiculous outcome. So I think you're right. I mean, there's a whole host of things within the issue to talk about.
Yeah, Michael, thank you. Really grateful to you. And I'll just say, we've talked about education on two-way. We've talked about doing a lot more. This platform aspires to really big things. We're business, so we're trying to build the business. But when we're capitalized sufficiently, when we've got enough bandwidth to do this, we want to revolutionize conversations about issues like education. And I don't say like education lightly. We want to be the place where people in this country can have conversations. Parents, teachers, kids, administrators, politicians, analysts, to have conversations that are like no other, where people can hear new voices from all over the country and try to grapple with some of these issues, best practices, worst practices, trends, et cetera. So we hope to get there because one thing's true. We're not sure we'll get there. We hope we do. Those conversations aren't taking place. There's no forum for conversations like that, and there needs to be. Sheila, welcome, and thank you for being part of Two-Way. Tell folks who don't know where you are.
Hi, I'm in New Jersey.
Yeah, where in New Jersey?
Summit.
Yeah, beautiful place.
Yeah, it's great.
How many horses do you own?
Oh, none. Although that would be nice if I had somebody to take care of them, though. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. All your neighbors have them. You can just pour them.
No, not in Summit. Summit's
No,
pretty suburban. You'd have to go out, a little further to the west.
I do. I just like to joke about how pastoral your entire state is.
It is pretty.
Sean and Dan are ready for your questions or comments.
So I just read an article in Medium about a surrogacy gone wrong. And I've been reading about that. And then I was also reading about artificial wombs. And I've started to think like, this isn't on most people's radar screens. And I just have this feeling that as the trans issue is sort of maybe reaching a tipping point, that this is going to be the next issue that women are screaming about with their hair on fire, while people are wondering why they're getting hysterical. And that, it's going to be this new battle because we don't know what it looks like to have a child without a parent. There was a child gestated recently with genetic material from 3 people. And so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, how do we get ahead of this? And who does that? Because this seems like something we need to be thinking about it before we're unleashing it on the world. Children without parentage.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
I think the more that I read about it, the less I like it. I think there are older single men going out and hiring surrogates to have children. Doesn't seem like a great idea to me. I don't know what it's like to gestate a baby in an artificial womb. I had 3 kids. I know that having, that birth process and that pregnancy process is important. I don't know what it does to me hormonally and how that makes me, react as a parent. And I'm not saying that, of course, obviously, there are situations where you aren't going to be the birth parent of your child. But is this something that we want to be promoting? Are there losses? Are we not even willing to look at those, of the damage that might be done?
Yeah, complicated topic. Sean.
I apologize, but can you just define what this is? I'm trying to, is it
Sorry, to me, it's kind of, it's a good question. It's kind of, and that's what happened to me like recently. It was like all of this in my head. And I started to think about the book by Kashiro Ishiguro called Never Let Me Go, where children are cloned and then they live in an institution and their organs are harvested for the person who they were cloned from. And then this surrogacy gone wrong article in Medium. So it's sort of, I guess, maybe this overall idea of completely detaching gestation and birth of a child from the genetic parents. So it's surrogacy and artificial wombs. Sorry,
I think it's a large issue and there's 2 separate things in there. So, because surrogacy has been around forever, and I mean, again, that in itself, there's a whole thing. I think that the AI artificial creating children and people in petri dishes or something is a whole separate world, and sort of, again, within that you can get into this whole issue of genetically modifying, kids to not have certain strains of DNA or to avoid. I think it's a very complicated topic. I think there's 2 separate things as far as surrogacy and all of that. And then there's the sort of the medical bio issue, which I think is a much more
you're right.
Yeah. And that to me is I do believe there are some laws currently on the books that regulate that.
There was this article in Medium, though, was astonishing, and how the woman who had so much money from Silicon Valley to hire the surrogate was then able to just wreak complete havoc on her life when things went wrong. And it does feel that felt very exploitative to me.
Let's get a comment from Dan on the Brave New World. Dan.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the details of this issue, except to say that science's ability to help people who struggle with infertility achieve the birth of a child, I think, is one of the great gifts of the world.
Absolutely.
And I think I don't want to comment because that is so painful for so many people and the hoops that people will jump through to try to achieve it. And so if it's to modify to create an army of, childless parents or childless kids to go, march, that's one thing. If this is, research and innovation to allow parents struggling, or a parent who's struggling with infertility, achieve that gift, I'm very empathetic and would want to, continue that. So
I agree with that, Dan, but my question is, just try to read this article and see how it seems this is unregulated and the damage is being done to women who do not have financial power.
Sheila, can you drop it in the chat just so that we have it?
Absolutely.
Sheila, thank you. Grateful to you for raising it, and grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. And let's bring in Paul. Paul, if you could unmute, tell folks where you are, what's on your mind for Sean and Dan.
Good morning. I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, moved out to Denver, Colorado 3 years ago. Sorry, the voice is still a little hoarse, recovering from a cold. Usually watch you guys on YouTube basically every single day while I'm running, actually, Dan, so figured you might appreciate that. And in the evening, I watch Mark on a walk.
Do we anger you and then you get more energy to keep going? Is that it?
Yeah, maybe something like that a little bit. Yeah. It's always a good time, though. So basically had one open-ended question and then one short question for Mark.
Yes, sir.
Open-ended question is for everybody.
Yes,
so
sir.
Interested in talking about what happened in Charlotte with the Ukrainian woman. So I live in the heart of downtown Denver, Colorado, right next to Union Station, actually. The first year that we moved here, we didn't have a car. So we're actually at the mercy of mass transit. So I've taken the light rail countless of times, and it is never a normal experience around here. There's people with mental issues. I've seen people doing drugs. It's just really not safe, and you're always on edge. And honestly, the guy in the video for this Ukrainian woman seemed relatively normal to me. Like, it wouldn't have raised my red flags with how he was acting when he first got on the train. So my wife, in addition, she had to take the bus down here for a period of time. One quick story, she was on a morning walk at 6 a.m., December, downtown Denver, going to get the bus, and a guy stopped her, threatened to kill her. She came back scurrying back, crying, the whole thing. So it's very dangerous. I take the train to the airport all the time. I always have to pay for my $10 ticket. The person doing meth next to me never has to pay. That they just look over it and they go on. And on my walk where I listen to you, Mark, every night at 16th Street Mall, they just redid it. It's beautiful, but I would tell you 40% of the buildings are boarded up on the first floor. And it's like walking around it like they emptied a mental institution down there. It's crazy. So it's like really difficult. So I would say, like, my original question was like, how do we get here? Were the cities always like this? Is it something that just happened over time? But I think Sean and Dan and Mark answered that question a little bit earlier. So my other question is, how do we move forward from this? And like, how do we make it better? And how do we stop politicizing this so much and come up with like actual concrete solutions? Yes, National Guard is probably like a short-term solution. And yes, more police would help. But like, I also think there needs to be help for people with like the mental problems, with like the drug problems. Like, what's a comprehensive solution that everybody wins and we move forward?
Yeah, before the guys answer, Israel says they targeted residential buildings in Doha. U.S. Embassy says Americans should shelter in place. Dan, thoughts on what could be done to make our urban life a little bit less tense?
Yeah, so Paul, first off, it wasn't always like this. It was in the 70s and 80s, and then in the 90s and 2000s, there was a huge movement to move people off the streets, homeless. They anti-loitering laws that you could not just be on a park bench, you couldn't sleep in parks. And it coincided with a lot of people moving back into cities, urban development, neighborhoods that were, gentrified or revitalized. I think one of the big issues is there was a huge movement against, they said, sometimes homeless weren't treated well. Their budgets were cut for mental health facilities and shelters for where do you put people? But it is a huge problem. I agree with you. We have 3 of our 4 kids take the subway to school in New York City. It makes us nervous every single day. We all have instances of it. I'm here in DC. One morning before we moved, when I was running, a homeless person jumped out from behind a bush with a knife and no shirt on. He was so whacked out of his mind that when I took off, he basically couldn't move because he was so drugged out. But it terrified me. And I started carrying mace running in Washington at the end because there were so many homeless people that were just crazy around town. It shouldn't be this way. And for the Democratic Party has got to acknowledge that and put solutions on the table beyond explaining and kind of being sympathetic for the people committing the crime. We have to remember the victims and the people of the society who don't want this and be on their side.
Sean.
I would just say, look, as I noted earlier, Republicans aren't going to, I mean, we have a couple cities that we're controlling, but I think for the most part, the big metropolitan ones, New York, DC, Chicago, LA, I mean, maybe LA at some point in the future. This is a decision for the Democratic Party, to Dan's point. Like, they've got to decide, but when you go soft on crime, you're anti-police, and you allow people basically to go, create open drug dens throughout the city, that's not, you've got it. Someone at some point, it's going to take leadership to fix it. I will say, as the last week, I've probably spent more time in DC than I have in quite a while, at different events. And it is a markedly different city right now. You feel safer. There's not urine and pot smells everywhere downtown. And that's a choice that all of these cities have to make. I am blown away when you see a mayor like Brandon Johnson in Chicago openly sort of flaunt his defiance to attempts to make it safer. It is a choice, and it's not hard to fix this. You make it a priority. Giuliani did it in the 90s with New York. And, so these guys have to make a decision, but you can't have it all. You can't be anti-cop, anti-law, open drug, pro drugs, and then wonder why things are disgusting.
I do want to just flag there are a lot of red states with cities that have huge crime problems. From New Orleans, Birmingham.
But again, the state
I know Democratic
mayors,
but they are Republican states. Yeah. The Republicans control the National Guard. Republicans control state police. Like, just to be fair.
And as I've said before, the malpractice of the governance of Democrats is manifest, but the malpractice of Sean's party to fail to find people who can run with better ideas and convince voters is also a big problem. Paul, did you have a quick question for me?
Yes, you always have great restaurant recommendations, and I never heard you give one for Denver. So I was wondering if you had one.
I haven't been there in so long. Let me work on it. Let me work. I've been there but once since then. Let me work on it. I'll do one tonight or tomorrow. I got to go review my notes. Nothing comes to mind. I've eaten well there. There's a good.
Oh, you like your governor or no?
Oh, I'm indifferent towards it. I don't get too much into the politics out here. Being I'm from PA, I kind of focused on that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, out here.
All right, Paul, thank you for being part of two-way. I hope your neighborhood gets cleaned up, and I'll get you back to you on a restaurant.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Appreciate it. Sean, real quick, what's you got for tonight?
Well, we're going to talk a little crime, but we're also going to talk New Jersey with Republican gubernatorial nominee Jack Ciattarelli, and then break down the rest of the polls after that with Jim McLaughlin. So it's a big political night on the show.
Great. All right. Two-way tonight. We'll have full coverage of what's going on with Israel and Hamas, as well as the White House briefing and the president's photo op, and so much more. 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Our guest, Lindsay Keith, independent journalist and former Sean Spicer co-host, and Democratic strategist Christy Seltzer join me at 6 p.m. tonight. And the Moynihan Report right after Michael speaks with, I should say, Alan Dershowitz. So that's 7 p.m. So 6 to 7 the morning, 2-8 tonight, 7 to 8, Michael Moynihan. The Moynihan Report, please join for both. And remember, this program is available as a podcast. So if you want to listen on the go, please go to Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can always watch us on demand on YouTube. Gentlemen, thank you very much for everything. Anything else we didn't discuss that you're looking for regarding Israel and Hamas? Qatar has condemned it as a cowardly act.
Look, I think the big thing we've talked about this, Mark, this issue divides both parties increasingly, and it's just going to be more if the region erupts.
Yeah. Sean?
I think to your point, there's going to be a lot to watch. Who reacts, how they respond. We'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow.
Are there more?
Yeah. We'll see in 23 hours. Grateful to
when the president talks, we'll see what he says too. That's going to.
Yeah. Again, we're being reported by CNN that the United States was informed in advance. We'll see. Grateful to you for being part of the two-way community. Again, please join us in 23 hours, and Sean and I will see you at 6. Have a good day.